Welcome, Dan Williams, Survive. So today we're going to be talking about the SAM splint. Now, some of my older videos, and I'll put those below, I talk about ankle sprains and how to splint those. There's one that I talked about a dislocation of the shoulder and how do you splint that when you're in the outdoors. Today we're going to be focused mostly on the arms, hands, wrists, and up. And we're going to talk about the SAM splint. Now this package on the SAM splint, it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 SAM splints, some Medi-Rip, and some smaller ones. And this package is probably, I think it's 47 bucks on Amazon, which is a great deal because on one of these, you're looking at like anywhere from $9 to $12 for one of these splints. So, and if you're out in the outdoors, you're not going to be carrying this whole pack with you. You go on a week excursion to Smokies, your friend jacks up his arm, and you're going to splint it. Your splint is either going to get blood on it, or it's going to get lost, or the ER, urgent care, is going to forget to give it back to you. So it's nice to have these at home, and then what you're going to do is you're going to put one in your pack, and then you can just resupply it. So that's really nice. So there's what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 7 of them in there. And then you got these smaller ones, which is mostly, in my opinion, for advertising, but these you can cut these down, and these work really nice for a finger joint like this. Although when you're splitting the finger, which we'll get to in a minute, you really want to come all the way down here and splint this joint, which is called the MCP. You want to splint this joint too. If you have an injury up here and you don't know if the tendon's involved and you move that like that with your hand, not a good idea. So when you're splitting the finger and you don't know what's going on for sure in the outdoors, you're splitting this sucker all the way back. We're going to start out talking about wrist splinting and thumb splinting, as well as some basically the 5th digit on your hand. Very common. You're hiking, you fall. What's the first thing you do is you put your hand out. It's actually called foosh, falling on outstretched hand. So what you're going to do is you're taking his hand and you're going to splint this so you basically have his wrist immobilized, and provided there's no injuries with his fingers. And this is really a simple no-brainer. You take this, you take your Medi-Rip, and you're just basically going to splint his wrist. Now, if he has a thumb injury, you'll see people that are using ski poles, riding a sled in the snow, and they'll hit a branch, and this thumb goes back. You have a ligament here, you have one on the other side. That often gets torn. It also gets written off a lot of times. Some clinicians totally miss this. They do an x-ray, there's no fracture. 3 weeks later, it's still painful, and that ligament can be torn. So when you splint this, you're going to take this, and you're going to, and that's what's nice. These are aluminum and then padded foam. Really easy to bend, very lightweight for the pack. And you can basically encompass that thumb like that. And you can then take your Coban, Medi-Rip, they come with various names, and you can just wrap this up and splint this way. Now, if you're going to, we talked about earlier, a person has damaged their fingers, it's dislocated or broke. If it's at a joint and you're days from getting back, go ahead and try to get it back in place. You can go ahead and pull that and put steady traction on their finger, and it will definitely go back in, or at least get straighter if it's in the joint area. If you're less than 12 hours from getting back to care, just leave it alone. Just splint it in the position that it's injured. But with fingers, like I talked about earlier, right at the beginning, you want to I go all the way back. Splint the wrist. Don't just split the finger, okay? When they move the wrist, they're going to be moving those tendons. So really, really important that you go back here and splint the wrist. As a rule of thumb, it's really nice and important to splint the joint above and below the injury, for sure, all right? Because you don't know what's going to be jacked up in the outdoors. So above and below the injured area, real important. So we talked in the previous video about neck injuries, and it's always best to err on the side of caution when you're outdoors. You know, don't be cavalier. Stick your hubris in your pocket. You don't want it, you don't need it. That's how injuries happen. So you don't need any narcissism in the outdoors. You think there might be something going on with the neck, splint it as if there's something serious. And what's nice about these is you can take the edges of these and you can bend these like this, just about half an inch all around, like that. And that is going to be for comfort, because you don't want this embedding into his. What I do is take this and you can splint him, and you want the front of this splint open in the front, and we'll talk about that. And then you can take Medi-Rip. Now bring your chin down, just relax. And this is really nice. I mean, basically you now have a C-collar, and you've now immobilized his neck, and he's stable. Now, why do I want this open in the front? God forbid something happens and we missed something earlier. He's got swelling going on. All of a sudden he can't breathe. You can't deliver breaths to this guy, and hopefully there's somebody medical around. You should never do this in outdoors if you're not trained. In all the years, I've only done 3 of these, so it's not that common, where you basically crack them. All right, so you basically can make a little incision, and you've seen this before, I'm sure, where they take the ink pen and they stick it in there for a breathing tube. So that is not something you're going to do. However, if you get in the habit of doing it the right way, God forbid something happens, you don't have to take the time to turn this around, take it off. So open in the front, close this puppy up. So I talked in the past about dislocations, and I will put that video at the bottom. We're going to talk about elbow fractures, elbow dislocations briefly. They do occur. They occur in the outdoors. You fall, you have something in your hand that's precious, and you don't want it to break, and you fall on your elbow like this. You sacrifice whatever you have in your hands to sacrifice your elbow. Happens more often than not. When I was growing up, it happened a lot to me, because when I have my gun in my hand, you never let that gun touch the ground. Can't tell you how many times I fell. You sacrifice your body, you keep your gun and barrel pointed up, and you sacrifice it. So you may be carrying whatever, and you're going to fall and sit down to your elbow. So if you are concerned about breaking your elbow, or you have a dislocated elbow and you're in a lot of pain, it's really kind of a no-brainer. You want to splint this at about 90 degrees. Now ideally, it would be nice if this SAM splint was much longer for this. Now it's not. So you can definitely take some duct tape and attach 2 together, and you can lengthen these. So you would have it here, and you would come out to here, and then you would come up. And you're going to be at 90 degrees. Once you do that, and you have this here, at that point in time, well, just hold this. We'll just do it. So we're going to just hold that there with that hand. Thank you. And when I wrap Medi-Rip, I've talked about this in previous videos, it's half, this, you're coming across half again, and that evenly distributes the pressure of the wrap. Half again, same thing when you're doing casting, same thing. So you're basically going to wrap this on his arm. You're going to put his arm in here, and you can swath him. So you can take this and you can swath him all around his chest, and then you're going to go under this other arm and you're going to swath this arm to his body. And that is really secure, and that's awesome. However, there are situations, if you're in a canoe, you're in a situation where you need the use of this arm, or at least this hand, because it's, you know, I don't know if you ever tried going down a canoe or going down a hill with one hand and one arm. It's very difficult. You feel very unsteady. So what you can also do is you can also take your splint. Let me just cut this off. You could also take your splint and you could split him out this way. You're going to take this, you can splint this elbow 90 degrees again, and you can basically take that, you can go ahead and wrap it really tight. It is not as secure, but he's going to feel a little more balanced having this even out here with one hand. So it depends on the terrain, depends on, is it hilly, is it a lot of valleys, is there snow on the ground, is it slick, are you in a canoe? It's very difficult to maintain that with one arm. So think about that. All right, so that is splinting from basically waist up. And like I said, I'll attach the other videos. If you have any questions, throw them in the comments below. Keep your eyes on the rise and your face to the wind. Stay safe. Till next time.